how
Yeah.
did you get this team from like really struggling, just in all aspects, unable to get a defense in the first two matches? I want to say, how did you go from that to making it into playoffs 3-2?
They just needed a kick up the ass. And I
Right. So here I am with Velocity of Team Dilemma, not to be confused with the other Velocity, which is also on the team. But Velocity, how you doing?
doing good, thank you very much. And yourself?
Pretty good. To start out, I do think it's going to be interesting just talking about how you joined this team and how there are two velocities on this roster. Because I'm familiar with the
Mm.
American Velocity. You know, I saw him at the major.
Yeah.
He's been on past teams. But all of a sudden, I check and I'm like, this is the American Velocity contacting me. No, it's the British one. Like, how did you get
Yeah.
here? And how'd you end up on a team with a guy with the exact same name as you?
So it is quite funny. So originally, I back in EU, I was on a team. I was on a UKIN team with now head coach of SSGA, DMC.
Uh,
So he joined SSGA and contacted me going, we need an analyst because I was an analyst at the time. And I trialed, unfortunately, weren't successful. I then suggested a very good friend of mine called Alive, who is now the assistant coach. But then I was kind of just looking for options, looking for a team, and I realised, oh, Dilemma
yeah.
are an option. And I messaged Bert Turkey on Dilemma, and it kind of just spiraled from there. I trialed, they liked me, I stayed, and somehow ended up on the E2 stream. Not too sure how that happened.
I mean, that's fair. And so, as a coach, I know the responsibilities kind of vary from team to team, from coach to coach. You know, what they bring, what they specialize in, what the team needs, you know,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. What kind of area of specialization do you focus on as a coach? And, you know, what is your main draw for a team?
So I specialize in sort of the mental aspects. I have really good knowledge of how to get through to someone from my experience. Is my profession is I'm a teacher
Oh,
in
okay.
real life, so I really understand how to have the knowledge I have now of, okay, this is what we need to do, and really give it to them and impart it into them in a way that they'd understand, and in a way that it's going to go in
Yeah.
and it's going to be implemented pretty much instantly. Obviously, I know the game
Yeah.
quite well. I'd like to say quite well, but sometimes. But knowing the game obviously helps. But I really do specialize in the mental aspect, which then goes hand in hand with the other Velocity, who's an analyst who really understands the game, like further than me. The guy's a genius, I swear.
Yeah, so you're more of a mental and like communication
Yeah,
aspect, and the other velocity is more the tactics and the
yeah,
small details of the game.
yeah.
Okay. And so, at what point did you join the team? Was it just like start of E2, middle of E2, like right before?
Middle of
Okay.
E2. So I was trialing with SSGA through the first two matches of Element 2. And obviously then was successful. I came to Dilemma, I think it was just after, and I mean just, I mean like literally a couple hours after their game before Christmas.
Okay.
And then obviously was with them from Christmas until, well, now. So not long in the terms of E2, but in terms of time spanned, a decent amount. And I obviously understand what was wrong with what happened in the past of E2.
Right. And so obviously Dilemma didn't start out the hottest, you know, going 0-2 is not where anyone wants to be, but we've seen the comeback before.
Yeah,
And obviously, you know, clearly you were a part of that, right? Like how
yeah.
did you get this team from like really struggling, just in all aspects, unable to get a defense in the first two matches, I want to say? How did you go from that to making it into playoffs 3-2?
They just needed a kick up the ass, and I don't want to sound like that because they were really trying their best, but
Yeah.
it was the small. It was the first thing that was highlighted to me by Velocity, the other one. Um, it wasn't the big things. There's not any big things like happening. It's the small micro things. there's lots of small micro things that stopped them from, getting getting the wins and getting it over the line. And it was a case of, okay, we know what's wrong.
Yeah.
And then we went, okay, so how are we going to fix what's wrong? And it was just a case of a couple of sessions of sitting down and going, this is what's wrong. How are we going to fix it? We're going to fix it like this. We're going to do this, this, and that. We're going to change this. We're going to implement that. Okay, now we've said what we're going to do. Now we have it written down on paper. Let's go into a scrim. Let's go into a custom game. Let's dry run it. Let's actually do it and try it and build off of it. Because instead of just going, we're doing this, we actually worked on it.
Okay. Right. And so, out of those Swiss matches, are there any in particular that stood out in your mind, or
any in particular? Oh, in what way in particular? As
just
in,
like tactically, what was going on with the team, about improvements that the team made before the match? Just winning it or dominating, just any aspect of it that kind of stood out to you.
I think it was a Cinta game we won.
Yeah.
Really stood out because, as you said, we went from 2-0 to beating Cincinnati. I think it was 2-0, wasn't it?
It was a 2-1 map score, yeah.
So, a big shift, a huge shift in everything, in play style and mental, just a completely different roster to what we saw in the first two matches.
Right. And then the playoff match against Envy, obviously looking at it now, we could go, oh, well, man, really unlucky to get the Element 2 champions. But, if you look at the match itself, 2-1 loss. One of the maps that you lost was a 6-8 overtime. This was a winnable game.
Absolutely.
What was going on there? And, how far off were you from changing just the course of the entire Element tournament?
So, map 1 was, by all accounts, good.
Yeah.
I take it as a good map. We really showed, actually, this is what we are made of. And we've not let him live it down, but map 2 was great. Looking back at it, and I've looked through the VODs and looked through everything, the Zonky play costed it. It was just a small thing. It was one of those, like we've said before, the small micro that's just snuck through and it just blew up.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the trend at the moment across all of the E2. It's just those small micro plays that blow up.
Yeah.
In terms of how close we were, I with the form SSGA were on from the start of from the start of playoffs, I think we could have been in grand finals.
Okay.
That sounds, I'm being really cocky, but I watched them and I saw that's not the SSG we know. That's just not who they are. So I kind of we were pretty close. I think it's safe to say.
Okay, sweet. And so, what is next for this team? Obviously, Rai was kind of a last-second step in for the team. He's stepping back. You're looking for another player. We don't know what's going on for the future of T2, T3. So it's kind of what's next for Team DLMA, and what are you guys looking forward to doing in this kind of uncertain period?
So obviously, if we're looking small, near future, it's picking up our 5th player. We're running trials until, if I remember correctly, February.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, possibly. But we're running trials until February, and we're making the decision then. So getting a 5th is priority number 1. Priority number 2 would be settling in that 5th, which is more kind of the team's job than my job, but both parties play a part in it. But long term would be adapting and expanding on this performance in Element 2. No one thought we would be sitting here in 5th place of Element 2, but actually getting it to that 3rd place, that 2nd place, or grand finals, getting all the way there is goal, because we've shown we have the capability and the material that we are able to go all the way. Because, as you said, it was unfortunate that we drew the champions of Element 2 before we even knew it, but to go not only arguably do better than Khan and Co, we got a map on them, speaks numbers.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get a map on them, then Khan and Co can't. That says a lot of things to me. And obviously, I'm not again. Khan and Co are an absolute phenomenal team. It just says huge, huge, huge numbers to me because actually they're Element One champions. How have we got a map and they've not? It's huge. So I think long term it'd be getting this team into semi-finals, grand finals at a minimum.
All right. And so, is there anything that you want to say to close out this interview?
Alive,
Alive?
I'm coming with you.
All
We're beating
right.
SSG at least once.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. SSG v Dilemma beef. I'm starting it now. This ain't even about like when you're trying to start. I'm starting this. I'm making for the narrative.